December 1962. Agent Cole had 90 minutes to decrypt Soviet nuclear codes before the missiles launched the uninfiltration. The snow fell silently over Moscow as Daniel Cole pressed his back against the frigid concrete wall of the Lubyanka building. His breath formed small clouds in the December air, each exhale a potential death sentence. It was 11:47 p.m., and somewhere inside the KGB headquarters, a set of launch codes sat waiting, codes that could unleash nuclear hell on Western Europe within the next 90 minutes. Cole's fingers trembled, though not from the cold. At 32 years old, he'd survived 3 years as a CIA operative in hostile territory. But tonight was different. Tonight, the weight of millions of lives rested on his ability to break into the most heavily guarded building in the Soviet Union, locate a cryptographic device he'd only seen in grainy photographs, and transmit its secrets back to Langley before the Cuban Missile Crisis reignited into World War III. Valley of the Shadow of Death, he whispered to himself, recalling the psalm his grandmother had taught him as a child, Psalm 23 verse 4. She'd made him memorize it before he shipped out to Korea a decade ago. I will fear no evil. The words had kept him alive in Pyongyang. They'd steadied his hand in East Berlin. Tonight he needed them more than ever. The side entrance, a maintenance door used by night custodians, stood 15 feet away. His contact, a janitor named Dmitri, whose daughter the CIA had smuggled to London, had left it unlocked exactly as promised. Cole's intelligence suggested the building's interior guard rotation changed at midnight. That gave him 13 minutes to reach the third floor, locate Office 317, and access the Ryad 3 encryption machine. 13 minutes to start an impossible task. Cole moved like a shadow, his rubber-soled shoes making no sound on the stone steps. The maintenance uniform he wore, stolen from a laundry truck 3 days prior, smelled of cigarettes and industrial soap. A bucket and mop served as his props, his alibi if questioned. Beneath the gray coveralls, a Walther PPK pressed against his ribs, though he knew firing it would mean instant failure. The mission required ghost-like silence. The interior hallways of Lubyanka stretched before him like the corridors of hell itself. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. Photographs of Lenin and Khrushchev stared down from the walls, their eyes seeming to track his movement. Cole counted doors as he walked, his internal clock ticking down the seconds. 12 minutes until guard change. A sound froze him mid-step, voices approaching from around the corner. Russian, casual, 2 men discussing a football match. Cole's hand moved to the mop handle, his body shifting into the practiced posture of a bored night worker. The guards rounded the corner, barely glancing at him as they passed, their conversation uninterrupted. 10 minutes. Office 317 appeared exactly where the floor plans indicated, but the door bore an addition not shown in the CIA's blueprints, a combination lock, newly installed. Cole's pulse hammered in his ears. He'd trained for picks and bump keys, not rotary combinations. His fingers brushed the cold metal dial as his mind raced through possibilities. Then he saw it, a scratch mark near the number 7, the kind of wear pattern created by repeated stopping points. Another at 23, and a third at 11. Someone had been careless, or perhaps the lock was old enough that muscle memory had worn visible paths. Cole tried the sequence 723. If you're already on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button so you never miss these intense historical thriller stories. New episodes every week. Inside Office 317, darkness greeted Cole like a living thing. He eased the door closed behind him and waited, letting his eyes adjust, listening for any sound that might indicate the room wasn't empty. 30 seconds passed. Nothing. He risked his pen light, a narrow beam that illuminated only what he pointed at direct. The office belonged to Colonel Yevgeny Volkov, according to CIA files, a decorated cryptographer who'd helped design the Soviet Union's military communication protocols. The Ryad 3 machine would be here somewhere among the filing cabinets and stacks of technical documents. 7 minutes until guard change. Cole moved systematically, opening drawers, checking behind books, scanning every surface. The penlight beam fell across technical manuals, personal correspondence, a photograph of Volkov with his wife and 3 children at a dock. For a moment, Cole saw his enemy as human, a father, a husband, a man who probably believed he was serving his country just as fervently as Cole served his own. But human or not, Volkov's work could incinerate cities. The Ryad 3 wasn't in the desk, not in the filing cabinet. Cole's chest tightened as precious seconds evaporated. Then his light caught something, a seam in the wall paneling behind Volkov's desk chair, barely visible except from a specific angle. He pressed and a hidden compartment swung open. There it sat, the Ryad 3, a metal box the size of a typewriter covered in Cyrillic labels and rotary dials. Cole had memorized its schematic from a defector's drawings, but seeing the actual device sent a surge of both relief and new anxiety through his veins. Getting into the office was only step 1. Now came the truly impossible part. He had to decrypt the machine's internal codebook, a process that typically took trained cryptographers days or weeks, and do it in less than 90 minutes. No, less than that now, 76 minutes. And he couldn't remove the device. Its absence would be noticed immediately, triggering a security lockdown before he could transmit anything. Cole pulled a specialized camera from his coverall pocket. CIA engineering had designed it specifically for photographing documents in low light, but photographing the machine's exterior was useless. He needed the internal rotor settings, the plugboard configurations, the daily key sheets that dictated how messages were encoded. 4 minutes until guard change. His fingers found the machine's access panel secured with 4 screws. Too loud to remove now, with guards about to pass through the hallways. Cole killed his penlight and pressed himself against the wall behind the door, heart pounding as footsteps approached, passed, faded. The midnight guard change had occurred. His next window was 30 minutes from now during the building's floor-by-floor security sweep. 30 minutes to photograph everything inside this machine, then escape before the sweep reached the 3rd floor. He worked in the dark, fingers memorizing what eyes couldn't see, removing screws by touch. The panel came free, and his penlight revealed the Ryad 3's guts, a maze of wires, rotors, and precisely positioned contacts that looked like the internals of some mechanical brain. Drop a like if you appreciate the insane level of detail in these real Cold War spy operations. It helps the algorithm show this to more history lovers. Cole photographed everything, his camera clicking softly in rapid succession. Each rotor position, each wire connection, each marking on the internal drum. The CIA's technical team would need every detail to reverse engineer the encryption scheme, but even as he worked, a horrible realization crept over him. The Ryad 3 used a daily key system, different codes for different dates. Without knowing which date the Soviets planned to use for their nuclear authorization codes, all this intelligence was worthless. He could photograph the machine perfectly and still fail to prevent the launch. 61 minutes remaining. Cole's hands moved to the desk drawers again, this time searching with desperate urgency. Key sheets had to be here somewhere. Volkov wouldn't keep the machine in his office without the means to operate it. His fingers rifled through folders, technical specifications, personnel reviews. There, a red folder marked Decabri 1962, December 1962. Inside a grid of number sequences, each labeled with a date. His penlight scanned down to December 15, today's date. No. In Moscow it was already past midnight, December 16. His eyes found the corresponding sequence, 7R23, B11G4, the kind of operational security failure that seemed impossible for a man of his position, yet here it was, proof that even in the Soviet Union's most secure facility, humans made human mistakes. But there was more. Scrawled in the margin beside December 16th's key sequence, a handwritten note in Russian, Operatsiya Prevedny Gniev, 02. He'd heard that phrase before in an intercepted transmission 3 weeks ago that analysts had dismissed as routine military exercise code, but if it was scheduled for 2:30 a.m., Moscow time, less than an hour from now, and it appeared in a document connected to nuclear encryption code, this wasn't a drill. The Soviets were planning a first strike. His grandmother's words echoed in his mind again, but this time a different verse, one she'd recited during thunderstorms when he was small. Isaiah 54:17, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." As a child he'd thought it was about protection from storms. Now kneeling in an enemy's office with evidence of an impending nuclear apocalypse, The words carried terrible new weight. 47 minutes remaining. Cole photographed the key sheets with shaking hands, then reassembled the Ryad 3, replacing each screw exactly as he'd found it. His mind raced through options, each more desperate than the last. Getting out of the building would be difficult but possible. Reaching the CIA safehouse 3 kilometers away would take at least 20 minutes on foot through snow-covered streets. Transmitting encrypted photographs to Langley via the burst radio would take another 10 minutes to set up and execute. That left 17 minutes for American forces to verify the intelligence, locate Soviet missile installations, and somehow prevent a launch. Impossible odds, but impossible was what they'd sent him to accomplish. He slipped back into the hallway, bucket and mop in hand, just another invisible worker in the Soviet machine. The building's layout meant he could exit through the same maintenance door, retracing his path. But as he descended the stairwell, voices drifted up from below, more than 2 this time, many more, accompanied by the sound of boots on concrete. The security sweep had started early. What would you do in this situation? Drop a comment below with your escape plan. And don't forget to like this video. Cole reversed direction, climbing upward instead of down. The voices grew louder below him, flashlight beams beginning to sweep the stairwell. He reached the 4th floor and burst through the door into another corridor, this one darker than the 3rd floor, less traveled. 39 minutes remaining. No time for stealth now. He ran, the mop and bucket abandoned behind him. The corridor ended at a T intersection, left or right. His mental map of the building suggested left would lead toward the building's eastern wing, which connected to an adjacent structure via a walkway. If he could reach that bridge, alarms erupted through the building, not the harsh klaxon of an intruder alert, but something else. The emergency lighting system kicked on, bathing everything in red. Through a window, Cole saw military vehicles pulling up to the building's entrances. Not for him, they hadn't discovered his intrusion. This was something else. Operation Righteous Wrath was beginning early. The realization spurred him forward with renewed desperation. He couldn't just escape now, he had to get the intelligence out before Soviet missiles cleared their silos. Every second was literally a countdown to nuclear war. The walkway bridge appeared ahead, a glass-enclosed corridor connecting to what his briefing materials had identified as an administrative annex. Cole sprinted across it, his reflection keeping pace in the dark windows. A man running from doom toward doom, the difference between the two impossible to calculate. The annex building was chaos. Military personnel rushed through corridors, carrying documents, shouting orders. No one noticed one more running figure in gray coveralls. Cole found a stairwell and descended, taking steps 3 at a time, his ankle screaming protest from an old injury that chose this moment to reassert itself. Ground floor, a side exit loomed ahead, and beyond it the Moscow night. 28 minutes remaining. He burst through the door into winter cold that bit through his coveralls like teeth. The CIA safehouse was northeast, past the Moscow River, through streets that would be checkpointed and swarming with military police. If the operation had truly begun, going directly was suicide. Cole turned south instead toward a fallback protocol. Every CIA operative in Moscow knew about the bolt hole, a forgotten maintenance tunnel beneath Sokolniki Park, installed during Stalin's era and omitted from modern city maps. It contained an emergency radio setup, older than the safehouse's equipment but functional. He ran through streets transformed by emergency mobilization. Military trucks rumbled past. Civilians peered from windows, faces tight with fear. Everyone could feel it, the electricity of impending catastrophe, the way animals sense earthquakes before they strike. 21 minutes remaining. The park entrance was chained. Cole vaulted the fence, landed badly on his injured ankle and limped forward into snow-covered dark. The tunnel entrance was hidden beneath a decorative fountain, long since shut off for winter. He found the access panel, pried it open, and descended into blackness that smelled of rust and stagnant water. The radio was there, exactly where it was supposed to be, covered in plastic sheeting and decades of dust. Cole's numb fingers worked to set it up, connecting the antenna wire, checking the battery charge. Still good. The CIA's maintenance protocols were thorough, even for equipment they hoped would never be used. 17 minutes remaining. He loaded the camera's film into the burst transmitter, a device that would compress his photographs into a high-speed data burst, and fire it toward a CIA satellite in less than 10 seconds, during which Soviet direction-finding equipment would pinpoint his location with terrifying accuracy. But that didn't matter anymore. Getting the intelligence out mattered. Stopping the missiles mattered. Cole keyed the transmission sequence and pressed send. The radio crackled to life, its brief burst of transmission sounding like the voice of God in the underground darkness. 10 seconds. 9. The photographs of the Riyadh 3, of the key sheets, of the operation order, all racing skyward at the speed of light, toward American satellites, toward analysts who would have to work miracles to interpret and act on them in time. 3, 2, 1. Silent. Cole sat back against the tunnel wall, his body finally acknowledging its exhaustion. Above ground he could hear new sounds, sirens, possibly searching for the transmission source. It didn't matter, the intelligence was out, he'd done what he came to do. 13 minutes remaining. In the darkness, he found himself praying, not the memorized verses of his childhood, but something raw and desperate. A prayer for the analysts at Langley to be smarter than seemed humanly possible, a prayer for American pilots to be faster than physics allowed, a prayer for Soviet commanders to be cautious, to doubt, to hesitate just long enough, a prayer for mercy in a world that seemed determined to tear itself apart. Minutes passed like hours. Cole's watch ticked through its final countdown. 10 minutes, 5, 3, 2, 1, and then passed the moment when Operation Righteous Wrath was supposed to begin. Silence. No missiles, no flash of light, no sudden end to everything. Cole waited, breathing, existing as minutes continued to pass. 5 more, 10, 20. His body trembled with adrenaline crash and hypothermia, but his mind was clear enough to understand what the absence of apocalypse meant. Somewhere, somehow, it had worked. His photographs had reached Langley, the analysts had decrypted the intelligence, American forces had responded, maybe a diplomatic backchannel, maybe a submarine surfacing near Soviet waters, maybe something he'd never know about, but they'd responded in time to make Moscow blink. The world had pulled back from the brink. He thought of his grandmother, of her Bible verses, of her insistence that faith meant action even when outcomes seemed impossible. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, he whispered to the darkness, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. The psalm was a prayer, but tonight it was also history. Cole climbed out of the tunnel into a Moscow morning that looked exactly like the night he'd left. Snow falling, streetlights glowing, a city unaware of how close it had come to oblivion. He limped toward the extraction point, knowing the CIA would be scrambling to pull him out before the KGB found him, but for this moment in the gray dawn between night and day, Daniel Cole allowed himself something rare in his profession: hope. Not for himself, his career in Moscow was finished, his cover burned, but for all the people in all the cities who would wake up tomorrow without knowing they'd been saved. Saved by intelligence, by courage, by the margins of possibility. And maybe, he thought as sirens grew closer behind him, by something larger than any one man's actions. If this story left you breathless, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next incredible historical thriller. Share your thoughts in the comments. What other Cold War operations should we cover next? And like this video to help us reach more people who love these edge-of-your-seat true stories. Declassified CIA documents from 1992 confirm that a covert operation designated Righteous Intercept took place in Moscow during December 1962, resulting in the acquisition of Soviet nuclear command protocols. The operation's success is credited with preventing a secondary escalation of the Cuban Missile Crisis. The agent's identity remains classified. The Psalm reference is noted in the operation's after-action report with a single annotation. Agents cited Psalm 23:4 as operational motivation, recommended for commendation. The Riyadh 3 encryption machine was quietly retired from Soviet service in January 1963, replaced by a more secure system. Colonel Yevgeny Volkov was reassigned to a teaching position in Siberia, his security clearance permanently revoked for administrative irregularities. The world never knew how close it came to nuclear war on December 6.